On today's show, the playoff disappointment is still there for the Cavs, but the future is bright, and it's probably time we acknowledge that Cleveland is still in a pretty good spot. We're going to talk about that on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's show, we are going to talk about the future for the Cavs, because despite the not great feelings around things right now, it is still really bright with this team. Plus, maybe a bit of an NBA Finals rooting guide with that set to get underway tomorrow between OKC and the Indiana Pacers. And then we will, if time provides, talk about the coaching move that was made by the New York Knicks on Tuesday and how it kind of goes along with what the Cavs have done. But I wanted to start today by talking about just the future of the Cavs overall. And I was listening to the Zach Lowe show on my flight back from Florida on Monday. And he, in one of his recent episodes, I don't believe it was the most recent one, I think it came out late last week, but there was a lot of talk aside from the actual basketball stuff going on, just like about the state of the Eastern Conference and how every team should feel about their next 5 years. And Zach, what he did basically was rank the teams 1 through 15 in the East. And the Cavs were the number one team for the next 5 years in the Eastern Conference, according to Zach Lowe. And I think Zach is a very smart basketball mind. I think he's terrific at what he does. I think it's outrageous ESPN let him go when they did. I think that his podcast is outstanding, and you should go listen to it after you listen to this one. But to see him have the Cavs, who lost in the second round again, in 5 games, again, as the number one team in the East for the next 5 years, I think sort of provides a little bit of perspective on where things are at right now. Like, this is not a fun summer. It has not been a fun 3 weeks since the Cavs lost to the Pacers in Game 5. Like, I understand all of that from a fan perspective. I get it. This is just, it's not fun to see every day there's a new rumor about who could get traded away. And I think things probably feel more bleak than they should with this team. Because, yes, this team came up short in the postseason. And ultimately, that's what they were always going to be judged on, was what happens when the playoffs arrive. What are you then? But I do think it's kind of easy to forget everything good that happened. And that's not fair either. Like, yes, the postseason matters more than the 64-win regular season. It absolutely does. And you cannot call this season a success, because despite the fact that they won 64 games, they lost in 5 games in the second round, which is the same exact thing that happened last year. But you also do need to look at this from okay, were the Cavs really a championship contender this year? I think so. But I think there are a lot of things outside of their win-loss record that would tell you maybe they're not quite ready. Now, they were ready to go further than they did. Like, this is a team where we started the regular season and said the Cavs need to get to the conference finals. Like, that is a successful season. And they fell short of that. And I'm not going to sit here, nobody is going to sit here and say the Cavs actually had a successful season and you should be happy. Like, I'm not going to say that, because that's not true. But I think we do need to remember that despite the fact that this year didn't end the way that anybody thought it would, the future is really bright for the Cavs. And that is something that maybe doesn't get mentioned enough. I think the last 3 weeks have been very doom and gloom, and I understand why, and I'm part of that, and they should be like that. When a team fails to reach its postseason expectations in the fashion in which the Cavs failed to do so, this is what you get. But I also think that we've gotten to this point and we've almost overlooked the fact that, hey, Donovan Mitchell was just first team All NBA for the first time in his career. And right now he's 28 years old. He'll be 29 before he plays another basketball game that matters, but he's 28 years old right now. He's still in his prime. I think there's a case to be made that Donovan Mitchell has gotten better every year of his career, and maybe he won't next year, but he's a guy that I'm going to bet on. He's a guy that, if you listen to Kobe Altman's end of season availability, said, we're not going to count out a 28-year-old Donovan Mitchell. And they shouldn't, because Donovan Mitchell has earned that sort of respect. Now, he hasn't gotten there in the postseason, but I do think that there's a chance he's still getting better. And if he's not getting better, I don't think he's getting worse right now. So you have a first team All NBA caliber guy, a surefire top 10 player under the age of 30. You also have Evan Mobley, who I don't know how many players there are in the Eastern Conference. And this will be an episode. We'll have to figure out who I want to do this specific episode with, because I don't think it's necessarily an episode where I should just be talking to you guys or myself for a full 30 minutes. But how many players in the Eastern Conference would you rather have now and moving forward than Evan Mobley? I don't know that he's number one, but there's not a very long list of guys. There's not a long list of guys in the East that you would rather have than Evan Mobley. And he's 23 years old. He has gotten significantly better, in my opinion, every year that he has been in the NBA. I think he's going to get significantly better next year. I think you're going to see a much better version of him, especially offensively. Defensively, I don't know how much better he can get, because he's been great from day one. His defensive floor is so high. So you have those two together, both on contracts that go into the future. It's not as if either of them are staring down free agency and you have to worry about that. And then you also have Darius Garland, a 25-year-old all-star point guard. Like this, in somebody who, I don't think he has the same ceiling as Evan Mobley, but I do think you look at this and say, yeah, he's probably not done getting better either. Look at what Donovan Mitchell was as a 25-year-old. And I'm not going to say that those two are exactly the same caliber of player, because I think Donovan just has a higher ceiling and is a better basketball player than Darius Garland is. But he wasn't done getting better then. How many guys in the NBA are done getting better at 25 years old? It's not a very long list. Darius Garland, not done getting better at 25 years old. So if you want to look at that, and you can pick flaws in anything, and you can pick some flaws in that, certainly. But the way that I look at it is the Cavs are in a spot where they've got 3 all-stars under the age of 29 right now, as I sit here and record this on June 3rd. That's a really good place to be. There's not another team in the East that you can look at and necessarily say that, especially with the shape Boston is in right now, where you don't know what Jason Tatum is going to be. You don't know what that Celtics team is going to look like. Now, I'm not out on the Celtics forever. I think that next year they're probably not going to be great, and then they will be really good again after that when Jason Tatum looks like Jason Tatum again. But I think it's very unfair to expect that next year, coming off of an Achilles tear, if he even plays it all next season. Next year's probably going to be a gap year for them. Now, you can talk me into, well, the Indiana Pacers are in the finals. Wouldn't you rather be them? Sure. But I also have doubts about how long that team's going to be together, because the one advantage, and this is, I guess, cut down a little bit because of the reality of the new collective bargaining agreement, but that Pacers team, I believe, has spent 1 year paying the luxury tax under its current ownership, and maybe they pay the luxury tax next year, but they're going to have some financial decisions to make, and the Cavs will have financial decisions to make too. But those are two teams that are going to be playing basketball in different areas of the salary cap. The Cavs are going to be able to retain talent easier than the Pacers will. And I think that matters here too. And I don't look at the Pacers as some unbeatable juggernaut. I don't. The Cavs are a team, you can't tell me on paper they are less talented than the Indiana Pacers. You can't tell me that. Now, the Pacers as a team are better right now, and they proved that on the floor. But you can't look up and down the rosters and say, yeah, the Pacers are just much more talented than the Cavs. That's not why they won that series. That's not why they're in the finals, because I don't think you can say that about the Knicks either. Like, I think you can look at that Knicks roster and say, yeah, that's probably a more talented team, but the way the Pacers play together makes them, I think, better than the actual talent they have. And that is a true compliment to them. But you can't look at that and say, yeah, I would rather be that for the next 5 years. So I do think this future for the Cavs is much brighter than it feels right now. It's still in the dark and gloomy days because they lost in the conference semifinals in 5 games. And that's not the place you want to be when you win 64 games. And I don't know that the Cavs are ever going to have a regular season as fun as this past one was. But I also think that their future, as far as playoff success and longevity and sustainability, I think is really, really good. And a lot of that is because Evan Mobley is 23 years old and going to be I think, perennial all NBA player. That's a good place to be. So, yeah, it's fine to be upset. I think you should still probably, if you're a Cavs fan, I think you should probably still be a little ticked off at the way things ended and that this team folded the way it did in the postseason and couldn't get it done and couldn't stay healthy too, which is another thing I've talked about quite a bit. But the way I look at this is, yeah, that's unfortunate, but there's not another team in the East that I think you would want to be. And I think if you gave truth serum to just about every general manager or lead decision maker in the Eastern Conference, said, if you could be yourself or Cleveland for the next 5 years, who would you pick? I don't know anyone that would say, yeah, I would not want to be Cleveland for the next 5 years. So that is a good place that the Cavs are at. The Cavs place they're not right now is in the NBA Finals. OKC and Indiana are. If you're a Cavs fan, who should you be rooting for? Let's talk through that next right here on Locked on Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Betterhelp. Let's talk about something that doesn't get talked about enough. That would be men's mental health. There's pressure to always keep it together, perform, provide, never show weakness, right? But the truth is, real strength comes from opening up and taking care of your mental well-being. Every year, 6 million men in the United States experience depression. Many of those men go undiagnosed, but talking to somebody, a friend, a loved one, or even a therapist can make a huge difference. And therapy, not just for those crisis moments that you might have, it's great for learning how to set boundaries, build healthy coping skills, and be the best version of yourself that you can be. BetterHelp has over 35,000 licensed professionals, making it easy to find a therapist who understands you. Plus, you can connect from anywhere and switch therapists at any time. Plus, you can fit sessions into your potentially very busy schedule with just a simple click. And as the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Talk it out with BetterHelp. Right now, our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/lockedonnba. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedonnba, LOCKEDONNBA. Thank you again for making Locked on Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. And the NBA Finals will begin tomorrow night. Oklahoma City playing host to the Indiana Pacers. Of course, this is a game that has been set in terms of the actual date for a long, long time. Many people, including myself, anticipated the Cleveland Cavaliers playing in this game. I was guessing I was going to be on a flight to Oklahoma City today. Instead, here I am, talking about who you should root for. And I don't think this is a hard decision. And it's funny to go on social media, right? You see all the maps out there. It's like, and these are put out by fans of the specific teams. You know, you saw it with the Knicks Pacers. And I think Cavs fans for Knicks Pacers were just like, please, nobody, please win. And I think Boston fans probably felt the same way. But with Thunder Pacers, it's a little bit different because obviously one of them are going to win the championship. And I think for Cavs fans' sanity, rooting for Oklahoma City is the right play here. And it's the right play because all year long, the Cavs were either the best or the second best team, but Oklahoma City was right there with them essentially the entire way. Now, the Thunder didn't start 15-0 the way the Cavs did, but they were great from day one through right now. They've never not been great. They never had really a stretch of basketball. You're like, the Thunder look pretty vulnerable right now. Like, the questions about the Thunder were always, well, they play really, really hard. Are they going to be able to play that? Like, is that going to matter as much when playoffs get here and opponents play just as hard as they do? It hasn't. Like, that has been something that they have been able to take it up another level that opponents have not been able to match. And that's why they find themselves in the NBA finals, because they're that good and they play that hard, and defensively they're that good. And I do think that if the Thunder win, this would probably feel a little bit, not much, and none of this is meant to make you feel great. But the Thunder winning the finals would probably make this feel like a little bit less of a missed opportunity for the Cavs, because I expected them to be in the finals. If you're listening to this or watching this, unless you're hate listening or hate watching, which, hey, I appreciate that too. You probably expected the Cavs to be in the finals. Like, if you were a Cavs fan, you probably entered the playoffs, especially after how good they looked in that first round against Miami, which feels like it was 5 years ago at this point. You probably thought, there's nobody in the Eastern Conference that can beat the Cavs. We are going to the finals. Probably something that went through your mind at some point. I would not have picked them to beat Oklahoma City. That is the one team in the NBA. And this is, of course, like health all being equal and whatnot. And the Thunder have been very healthy, and the Pacers have been very healthy too throughout their postseason run. But everything equal, the only team that I was going to pick to beat the Cavs in the playoffs was Oklahoma City. I would have picked the Cavs to beat Boston. I did pick the Cavs to beat the Pacers. If the Cavs would have played the New York Knicks, I would have picked the Cavs to beat the New York Knicks. If anybody other than OKC would have come out of the West and the Cavs had been in the finals, Minnesota, Denver, the Clippers, the Lakers, the Warriors, the Rockets, you name it, any of those teams, if they would have won the Western Conference somehow, I would have picked the Cavs to beat them, because I think that the only team that has been better than the Cavs is Oklahoma City. They were better in the regular season. They won 68 games. They've been the best. Their defense has been the best unit in basketball all year long. And they probably would have beaten the Cavs. Now, getting to the finals would have been great for this team, for this franchise, and I think for this fan base. It would have been awesome. And nobody is here to tell you otherwise. But I do think that that's probably the series I would have expected them to lose. So if the Thunder win, this feels to me like a little bit less of a missed opportunity. Now, you still missed out on going to the finals because you couldn't take care of business in the second round, when the path to the finals was maybe, I don't even want to say as good as it's going to be, because I just think next year is so wide open. And I will be very curious after this series ends, when our friends at FanDuel release odds to win the Eastern Conference in 2026, I would be surprised if the Cavs are not the odds-on favorites. Now, a lot will change between now and the next time basketball is played, but I do think that that could be the case. So you look at this as a missed opportunity, but if the Thunder win, I think it's a little bit less of a missed opportunity. Now, if Indiana wins, and I don't see a way, I do not see reasons other than if you're like a hardcore basketball fan, which I know a lot of you are, and you just love the way the Pacers play and that they play a unique style and the tempo is great and Tyrese Halliburton's awesome. Like, those are the reasons to root for the Pacers. But if you're a Cavs fan, I think it's probably pretty difficult to root for a division rival and to root for a team that beat your team in such an upset, where the Cavs were massive favorites in that series. They were favored in all 5 games that were played in that series. So I think you look at that and say, yeah, not going to root for them. I really think the Thunder are the play. And the other thing, why I think actually the NBA should probably be rooting for the Thunder too, the way I look at this is OKC won 68 games. The Cavs won 64. The Boston Celtics won 61. There were 360 plus win teams this year. Those 3 teams were head and shoulders above everybody else in the NBA in terms of regular season success. The New York Knicks won 51 games. The Houston Rockets won 50. The Houston Rockets had the 4th best record in the NBA, and they won 52 games this year. I think the NBA needs the regular season to matter more than it does right now. And I think if you had 360 plus win teams, no other teams win 55 or more games, and none of those 360 plus win teams actually win the title, that's probably going to devalue the regular season a little bit more than it already has. And the Cavs are part of the reason why the regular season's been devalued a little bit, because when you see a team win 73 games and have a 3-1 lead in the finals and not get the job done because of the Cavs, value the regular season just a bit. But OKC winning would probably bring some of that value back. And I think it would make Cavs fans feel just a little bit better. Now, I mentioned the New York Knicks. They fired their coach on Tuesday. Tom Thibodeau out. Could Johnny Bryant be next in New York? We'll talk about that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by OpenPhone. You're running a business. Put yourself in those shoes. You know that every missed call is money left on the table, right? When your phone rings, you got to be their answer, because every time that phone rings, that could be money in your pocket. Well, think about the last time that you had an urgent need. Maybe you needed a plumber. Maybe your roof caved in. It would be terrible. I don't know what happened, but that would be awful. If you called somebody and they didn't answer, one, you're probably leaving a message, but are you going to wait for that person to call you back, or are you going to find the next best person, right? You probably didn't wait. You moved on. That's why you need OpenPhone, because OpenPhone, the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. OpenPhone lets you manage business calls and texts from a single app, and the shared inbox feature is a game changer because your team can jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat. Plus, their AI agent handles after-hours calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so you never miss a customer. And right now, OpenPhone offering my listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. There's OpenPhone.com/LockedOnNBA. Plus, if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. If you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest from us here at Locked On Cavs. So on Tuesday, everybody got the notification, right? We all follow Shams of ESPN. He tweeted out, the New York Knicks have fired Tom Thibodeau after the New York Knicks go to the Eastern Conference Finals. I can't say this is the most surprising thing in the world. And part of the reason why I'm not surprised is because of what the Cavs did last year. And I understand that going to the conference finals is much different than losing in 5 games in the second round the way the Cavs did last year in JB Bickerstaff's final year in Cleveland. I totally get those things are different. And the New York Knicks, in this era of basketball, which these eras kind of coincide because they acquired Jalen Brunson the same year the Cavs acquired Donovan Mitchell. So these eras do kind of run parallel to each other. The Knicks have had more playoff success than the Cavs. They have won a series every single year that they've had Jalen Brunson. Obviously, Tibbs does predate Brunson, so it's not as if the Tibbs era is all one thing, but they have had postseason success in a way that the Cavs haven't. But I think what the Knicks have done is they've maxed out who they can be. And they made changes to the roster this past offseason. Julius Randle out. Dante DiVincenzo out. Karl Anthony Towns in. Mikal Bridges in. They fundamentally changed who that team is. And despite the fact that the Knicks went to Game 6 of the conference finals, it never felt as if, one, that team was going to win that series, or two, that they're near a championship. The New York Knicks do not feel like a championship basketball team. And that is important to note, because one of the things the Cavs last year lost in the second round, did they feel at any point like a championship basketball team? They did not. So the Cavs fire JB Bickerstaff. They bring on Kenny Atkinson, and Kenny Atkinson immediately takes essentially the same roster that Bickerstaff had and turn that team from a 48-win team to a 64-win team. Now, the postseason success did not follow. That is important to note here. But the Knicks are taking a page out of the Cavs playbook because they think this group has been maximized under one coach. We need to see if there's another coach that can get more out of this group. That's what happened in Cleveland. I think it was the right move. I don't think anyone disagrees with that. That is what the New York Knicks are trying to emulate. And I do think that there was always going to be a team that did this after this season. I thought in like mid-March, said, you know what, the New York Knicks, I think I said this on one of the Locked On NBA Squad Show East, if you listen to those. The Knicks were in a spot where it's like, okay, this is something that you look at and say, how can they get better? Because there's not much they can necessarily do roster-wise. They kind of are who they are, but they can change who the coach is. They want to be the Cavs. Now, they've had more postseason success than the Cavs. Totally get that. But they want to follow the Cavs blueprint where they change coaches and they immediately become better because they've changed the voice that's leading things. Now, could Johnny Bryant be a potential candidate? I will be very interested to see if his name starts to pop up for this opening. I've not heard anything as of right now. I did see The Athletic put him on their list of candidates. They put like 10 guys on that list. It was very quick after Tibbs was fired. One guy, Michael Malone, was on there, and I believe I saw reporting from the New York Daily News, I think it was, or maybe the New York Post, that said, no, Michael Malone is not getting the job in New York. So we will see what happens there. But there is a real world, and Johnny Bryant was an assistant coach in New York before he came to Cleveland. He has very good relationships, from what I understand, with that organization still. There is a real world in which the Cavs have to replace both Jordan Ott and Johnny Bryant this offseason, and that would be a challenge for them. And I think Kenny Atkinson has a good eye for other coaches. I think he assembled a terrific coaching staff his first year in Cleveland, but he could have to potentially really revamp this staff, because if you look at it, let's say, well, we know one of those guys is getting the Phoenix job, whether it is Johnny Bryant or Jordan Ott. My money would be on Jordan Ott getting that job, but one of them is going to get that job. Is there a chance that he takes other assistants with him for bigger roles in Phoenix? I certainly think so. Is there a chance that if Johnny Bryant gets a job in New York, that he takes an assistant or two from the Cavs with him? Very possible. We could potentially be looking at Kenny Atkinson having to revamp his coaching staff, and that would be one of the bigger stories that maybe doesn't get talked about as enough, because we talk so much about the trades and re-signing Ty Jerome and all those things that do actually go on the floor. But the coaching staff is important. And if Kenny Atkinson has to do that, that is almost as big a decision as any that he will be making this offseason. But thank you for deciding to make Locked On Cavs your first listen today. And thank you for making it your first listen every day. For everyone out there that is an everydayer to this show, if you're listening anywhere you get your podcast, make sure you subscribe to it. Give us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. And if you're watching on YouTube, as we get out of here, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs. I will be back tomorrow talking more about the Cavs.